We're talking about the respiratory system, so a good place to start is with the nose. The respiratory system of humans is designed so that air is going to enter it through our nose. Yes, we can breathe through our mouths, but the mouth does not do as well all of the things that the nose can do. I've got these kind of out of order. Of course, we know that the nose allows us to detect odors. And after exam 3, now you know that that means that the chemoreceptor cells that allow us to detect those chemicals that we call scents are found inside of our nose. And also the nose will change the quality of our voice and the loudness of our voice. But I'd like to focus on this first function. The nose warms up the air that we inhale. It cleans the air that we inhale. And it also adds humidity to the air that we inhale. So let's think about this a little bit. Why is it that our skin is designed to be waterproof? It's not so that water can't get in. It's so that the water that makes up most of us can't evaporate or get out. That means that there's no way for water to travel through this outer skin. However, on the inside of us, we're very watery, and we need to stay that way. If any cell is going to remain alive, it needs to have a layer of water across its surface. And not only is that true for cells like the inside of your mouth, but it is true particularly for those delicate, microscopically small air sacs, the alveoli. We'll get to them. So your body needs to make sure that by the time any little bit of air gets down to those alveoli, that it is saturated with water, that it has been humidified. And that starts here at the nose. Here in Southern California, the air can be very dry. If you're inside with air conditioning, the air is particularly dry. But when you inhale air through your nose, that air passes across all of these complicated structures like the conchae of the nasal cavity. And those things are covered with water. So the air is picking up water vapor. It is being humidified as it heads down to the alveoli. So by the time it gets to the alveoli, it's going to be very, very saturated with water. We don't have time to talk much about it, but when you exhale through your nose, then that water vapor gets recaptured by your nose as the air is leaving your nose. Kind of interesting. The nose is also important for warming up the air. Now, here in Southern California, it's not particularly cold, but when you inhale through your nose, you're inhaling air that's like 70 degrees, but by the time it gets down to the alveoli, again, it's at the optimal temperature, 98.6. The nose is also really important for cleaning the air that you breathe. We're going to talk in more detail about this cleaning function. The cleaning function is not just the nose, but also the trachea and the bronchi. And this cleaning function is critical for humans staying alive. We'll talk more about it. But actually, if you think about it, you know that your nose cleans the air that you inhale. How did you know that? If you've ever gone on a dusty hike and you come home at the end of a dusty hike and you blow your nose, you're going to see that you brought some of the trail home with you, right? Well, all of that dust ended up in your nose because your nose did not let it get down into your lungs. So thank you, nose. Let's look at the structure of the nose. On this particular image, I have grayed out some of the topics, well, rather randomly, evidently. So the nasal conchae are here. These 3 scroll-like structures that look like shells, they're there to make the air be more turbid. So we don't actually want air that we inhale to be what's called laminar flow. We don't want it to just go flowing on through. That is a great way to make some sort of heating system or something like that. Not a great way to make the respiratory tract. We actually want the air that we inhale to whoosh around, right? And to be really turbulent. because if it whooshes around, then there's a good chance that any little droplet of air, does air come in droplets? Any little tiny package of air is very likely to bump against the inside tissue of your nose. And when it bumps against the inside tissue of your nose, it is going to bump against something that's moist, so the air will pick up water vapor, and it'll bump against something that's covered with a substance called mucus, which is very slightly sticky, and then dust, like from your dusty hike, will stick to that mucus, and it'll end up here in your nose, and it will not go down into your lungs, right? Let's see, it's right up here that we have all of our chemoreceptor cells that allow us to detect odors. And this bone is going to be part of the ethmoid bone, the cribriform plate. And sitting right here is going to be your olfactory bulb. Let's see, here we've got our pharyngeal tonsils. The pharyngeal tonsils are in a good place because, boom, if you have inhaled some kind of a nasty virus, then hopefully they're going to hit right there. And then this will be the early warning system to your body to fight off that particular viral infection very quickly. And from there, it's going to head on down nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx. And then if you're just inhaling, you're not swallowing, then this epiglottis will be in the up position and the rest of the larynx will be in its down position. And then air can just whoosh, flow on down into the larynx and down near trachea. Great. So the larynx has got 3 different segments. I'm sorry, I said larynx. The pharynx has got 3 different segments. This part that's in the back of your nose is called the nasopharynx. Technically, it's from the end of the soft palate here, the end of the soft palate, the uvula, up to the back of where the conchae are. So all of this is the nasopharynx, naso because nose. And then the part that's from the end of the soft palate to the hyoid bone is called the oropharynx, oro because it's right behind the oral cavity. And then this last part of the pharynx is called the laryngopharynx because it's directly opposite the larynx. It is normal for food to go down the oropharynx, then the laryngopharynx, then down the esophagus. But air is meant to go this way, and air shares these 2 parts of the respiratory system with the digestive system. That is why sometimes you'll be swallowing something, and if you're not careful and you inhale while you're swallowing, not a good idea, then whatever's right there could go whoosh, sucked into your larynx, and then we will say it went down the wrong tube. Was the wrong tube? In this case, if it's food, the wrong tube is the larynx and the trachea. So the larynx. The larynx is very complicated in humans, and that is because humans speak. So the larynx is an enlargement that is superior to the trachea, and it's inferior and a little bit anterior to the pharynx. Now, the larynx is very complicated. You in lab have had to memorize 3 of its cartilages, but it's got a passel of them. And it also has got muscles. There are muscles on the outside called the extrinsic muscles, and the extrinsic muscles allow you to swallow, right? And then it's got intrinsic muscles, and the intrinsic muscles, they tighten your vocal cords so that you can make really high-pitched sounds, or you can make really low-pitched sounds when they get loosened up, right? So it's pretty complicated little structure, particularly in humans. So the 3 different cartilages that you need to know, also for your final exam, are the epiglottis. The name, the epiglottis means above the glottis. Well, what's the glottis? The glottis is this whole area through the larynx, the opening through the larynx, but also including the vocal cords. That is called the glottis. And this structure, the epiglottis, is a flap of tissue that has got epiglottic cartilage inside of it that will cover the opening to your windpipe every time you swallow. Oh, and how does that happen? So every time you swallow, your larynx goes upward, right? So here's how that's happening. So my hand here is going to be, there's my glottis, okay? I don't want anything but air going down my glottis. And then, here, I'll make it, is it this way? Oh, good, okay. I'll make it like this. So now it looks just like the image on the right side of your screen, right? So every time I swallow, my extrinsic muscles will pull my larynx upwards, and when it gets pulled upwards, my epiglottis covers the opening through the larynx, covers the glottis, and then I'll go back to breathing. Breathe, 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 swallow. Breathe, 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 swallow, right? The extrinsic muscles of the larynx are attached to this little bone called the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is an interesting bone from an anatomist's point of view because it's the only bone that's not directly attached to other bones of the body. All right, so cartilage number 1 is the epiglottic cartilage, which is in the epiglottis. Here in AP 120, we usually will accept either answer for that question. What is our next important cartilage? The thyroid cartilage, okay? The thyroid cartilage is the largest cartilage of the larynx. It's right here in the front. The word thyroid means shield, like a shield that a Roman soldier would be carrying. Evidently, he had a spear in his hand. I don't know. So that's the thyroid cartilage. It's the largest, and it makes up most of the structure of someone's Adam's apple. You know, guys have got really big thyroid cartilages with a very prominent laryngeal prominence, and that's one of the hallmarks of masculine anatomy, at least when it comes to the respiratory system. So that's the largest. What's the third one? The third one is the cricoid cartilage. And the cricoid cartilage is interesting because it is a complete circle. None of the rest of these cartilages make a complete circle, like a complete 360-degree circle. The thyroid cartilage you can see is big in the front, but it's not even there in the back. But here, the cricoid cartilage, it is present in the front and it's even larger in the back. The cricoid cartilage, remember this, connects the larynx to the trachea. The rest of the trachea, the part that most people call their windpipe, the rest of the trachea is made out of cartilage as well, but these cartilage rings are shaped like the letter C. This open part faces towards the back, and the closed part faces towards the front. There are times in action movies and medical dramas where someone will save a life by doing a tracheostomy. It is a hole in the trachea. That's what tracheostomy literally means, hole in the trachea. And in a tracheostomy, you will feel these little rings of cartilage, and you'll pick an area to cut, and you need to cut from side to side between the rings of cartilage. So you don't want to damage a ring of cartilage if you're saving someone's life in a diner with your pocket knife and a straw, right? But it works, okay? So make sure you know all of the structure of the larynx. We'll start with the trachea at our next video.